Hey folks, I am Blonde in the Belly of the Beast. This is Critical Condition, Robyn Riley. This is our channel Motherland, where we are supposed to be uploading weekly, but don't, because Robyn has a newborn baby, as you know, and I am heavily pregnant. And it's a whole thing. I know we've been trying. I know we've been trying to get together for a while, and I just every day I wake up and I'm like, no.
Why bother?
I know.
I've just finally managed to figure out a system of making my baby go to sleep when I need him to go to sleep, and then keeping him asleep for an extended period of time. So I'm really hoping that he'll just be asleep for this whole stream. But that's a new development that hopefully will.
Are you just dosing him with Quaaludes? That's what you're supposed to do, right?
No.
Little whiskey in the bottle.
that would be the old ways, right?
Yeah.
Right. So today we're going to be talking about anxiety, which both myself and Rebecca have been dealing with in different sort of ways, right? Because like when before birth, it's anxiety about the birth. It's anxiety about the responsibilities of doing your best as a pregnant woman. And then after birth, it's the anxiety of all of the postpartum stuff, right? So I feel like there's a lot of stuff there that we can talk about today that hopefully will be useful to people out there. So why don't we start with you, since obviously pregnancy and birth anxiety comes before the postpartum anxiety. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think our stories of anxiety are different because I had a pre-existing anxiety disorder before pregnancy, and you're low on neuroticism. You got a zen, hippie, crunchy presence that keeps me calm, which is why we're such good friends. So I already knew that pregnancy was going to be really anxiety provoking. As far as, I don't think it's gotten much worse. I mean, I do have obsessive compulsive disorder, which has been hard to manage in pregnancy, but most of that is really manifested in like, is this chemical smell going to hurt the baby? Have I already done something to hurt the baby? Like I got paint on my hand.
Food stuff, right?
Food stuff is really bad.
Stuff, yeah.
Definitely. Like I truly have called poison control no fewer than 50 times during this pregnancy. And like they know me at this point, and like there's this nice lady that works there, Roxanne or Roseanne, and she's like, "It's okay, Rebecca, your baby's gonna be fine." I'm like, "Okay, I'll try not to call you this week." But we're renovating houses too, and so with that comes a lot of anxiety because there's chemicals and there are solvents, and like I have to stay off the property site, but my husband comes home like covered in wood stain and whatever else the fuck. It's just been a nightmare for me. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of women experience this, especially with the food stuff, which has been really hard for me. But Google is the absolute worst thing for pregnancy. I was talking to my brother about this, and he's like, your baby would be fine if you hadn't Googled anything during your pregnancy. But there are so many schools of thought, especially with food, what is and is not okay to eat. So I've come across a lot of really weird stuff, like things that never would have occurred to me, especially within the Indian community. I don't know if you've come across this.
No, what did you
They
find?
have all these like pseudoscientific beliefs. I'm talking about like dots, not feathers, but all these pseudoscientific beliefs on like hot foods that stimulate the uterus.
Yeah.
And so both of us have been really into fruit in our pregnancy. Like,
yeah, we have.
Yep. I eat so many mangoes. It's crazy. And then like I Google it, like, are mangoes safe during pregnancy? And like these Indian women are be like, no, that is classified as a hot food. It'll give you uterine contractions and cause preterm labor. Like, what?
No.
And it's just like everything that you eat, if you Google it, someone's going to be like, what are you doing? You're going to kill your baby. And so eventually I just had to be like, I'm not going to eat unpasteurized dairy or raw meat, and everything else I'm just going to try to chill my balls about. But that only came late in pregnancy. So.
Right. So what were some of your like coping mechanisms to deal with that? Aside from like Dr. Google and making yourself more anxious.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, therapy's helped
a
lot, but I was doing that before I got pregnant. Cognitive behavioral therapy has helped a lot. But the real thing that my therapist keeps telling me is that like you have to get to a place where once you decided you're going to Google something, you know that you've already gone too far.
Yep.
And just not do it and accept the uncertainty of pregnancy, because even so, you know, even if I do everything right, that's not a guarantee the baby's going to be fine. And you know, some crack babies are fine too. So I just had to be like, it's kind of out of my hands. And
totally.
And you're religious too, and like I'm Catholic, and so sometimes I'm able to be like, yeah, I'm working on it still. But sometimes I'm able to be like, this is really out of my hands. It's out of my hands.
Yeah.
So what about you? What did you deal with? Let's talk about postpartum first, because I don't know that you had any. Did you have any pre-existing anxiety before you got pregnant?
I mean, generalized, probably no more than what any regular person would have, you know, like not super irrationally based anxiety, but I think for myself, my own anxiety, it's like very hormonal dependent. You know, like I'll have bad weeks and then I'll be fine for a while, you know? And obviously your hormones are kind of kicked into high gear during pregnancy, and there's a lot of like sort of ups and downs during postpartum. So I've been feeling more all over the place than normal, but no like diagnosed anxiety disorders before pregnancy or anything like that. So I had that kind of going for me. But with postpartum, I feel like more so than it is just anxiety, but even though it is anxiety, I will have moments that where I'll be like overcome with fear, like actual like terror. And it'll be like, you know, my baby's napping and I haven't checked his breathing for like 10 minutes. And it's like a pang of very sharp emotion in my belly that like kind of radiates throughout me. And I start to panic, and then I like check if he's breathing and he's okay every single time. And it doesn't matter how many times I check that he's okay and he's okay. That the sort of intensity of that initial spark of fear, it's the same every time. And it totally sucks. And I recently found out, spoken about this on a couple other occasions online. Dogs, like I've been trying to get out and walk to lose this baby weight, which is another source of anxiety, is like feeling like I look like crap all the time.
Oh, you look so good. It's making me less scared.
Thanks. I appreciate that. But you know, like it's in yourself, even if people are giving you compliments, you know, you're not the same size as what you were before pregnancy, and your body has changed in really drastic ways in such a short time. There's no way you can't feel crappy about it. So I've been getting out, trying to go for walks, and I'll like see it. Like I literally saw a golden retriever off its lead when we were walking in the woods the other day. And like, I'm sure he probably just like licked his lip or something, but like he showed his teeth for a second, and I was like, he snarled at me. Like, I was sure that the golden retriever was going to attack us, and I was terrified, and I just felt like a total insane person. My husband was just like, dude, like what the heck is going on? This is not normal.
Would you tell that story? I know you told it on a previous stream, but I think it's really relevant, about how you checked on your husband when he was chopping wood.
Yes. So that was in the early days of postpartum. That was like week 2, I think. And I was convinced that my baby and my husband were going to die. Like I was sure that it was going to happen, and it was going to be my fault for not like being observant. And my husband went out back to chop some wood, and he got a phone call while he was out there. So he was just like on his phone, walking around in circles out in the backyard. But he had taken about 10 minutes more than what he normally would take. And I was nursing, and I was like, he has chopped his leg, or he's chopped an artery, and he's bleeding out in the back. And I was like getting like visuals of this in my head, you know, like it was so intense. So I like got up, you know, like hobbled while still nursing to the back window and stepped over like a little bag with towels and stuff in it to see out the window. He was totally fine. I like went back to the couch. And then as soon as I sat down on the couch, I was like, you stepped over that bag of towels while you were nursing, and you didn't even turn the light on. You could have tripped and killed your baby. And it's just like this spiral of negative, horrifying thoughts. Now that's eased up. That's definitely eased up. I'm not afraid my husband's going to die anymore. But being afraid of my baby not breathing anymore, and like him stopping breathing, and like SIDS, that whole thing, which we've spoken about privately before, which I think maybe you should mention some of the things you told me because it really helped. That still persists, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much misinformation on the internet, especially. I did want to mention your story that's important because especially with like anxiety disorders, I'm always checking on things. It's part of the obsessive compulsive disorder. Mm-hmm. And often when I'm checking on something that I'm worried about, I'll expose myself to something else. So like the other day I was worried that I had gotten like torch lighter fluid on my hands. So like I went to the bottle to check to see like what the warning on it was. Mm-hmm. And then like I exposed myself to it again. And so I think that's like kind of what you did, like, because you had to check, you did something that made you feel like you endangered your baby. And then you're in like and then you're spiraling out, and then you're worrying about that. And then if you've worried about that for a few minutes, you're like, I wasn't paying attention enough because I was so worried about this other thing. And so it's really easy to just go down this path where you're spiraling out, and you just have to stop. And I'm sure that somebody that's in the medical field or a psychiatrist or something would tell us that the thing that we need to do is to learn not to check.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like, I know, which is really hard. Like that's kind of like, well, you actually told me another thing about like the dog thing, like exposure is good. So like exposing yourself to the anxiety and just sitting in it, and then having the realization that it's okay, I survived it. Yeah. That would be really good for probably the next time that the cycle sort of kicked in.
Right. You
know,
but what you'll want to do is just not go on walks. Like that's, you want to reduce the exposure. It's really counterintuitive, but you know, that's just what you have to do. You just have to keep exposing yourself, and then supposedly it gets easier, but but we'll see.
Funny story that I haven't told you yet about that. I took your advice with regard to the exposure thing, and not yesterday, but the day before yesterday. It was a beautiful day. My husband was busy working, so he couldn't come for a walk with me, but I really wanted to get out in the sun, and I was like, Rebecca told me exposure is the best therapy. Stop being a wimp. Put the baby in the sling. It'll be super cute. Go for a walk. And I forced myself to go for a walk.
And then you got attacked by a pack of dogs.
Well, ironically, I did encounter a dog off a leash, but it was like a Chihuahua. The dog was like literally this big. And it was like, I honestly feel like God was speaking to me in that moment, you know, because I went out terrified that I was going to encounter a dog off a leash, and I wasn't going to be able to defend myself. I wasn't going to be able to defend the baby. And I did encounter a dog off the leash, but it was like I could have kicked the dog, you know, like across someone's yard, and there's no way it would have hurt me. And I felt like, you know, that just like moment where I was able to laugh at myself and laugh at the fear was really healing in that moment. And I enjoyed the rest of my walk afterwards.
That's so great.
Yeah. I felt really proud of myself for being brave and going out and, you know, being able to laugh at myself for being scared of something so silly. And yeah, it did work. So thank you for that. And I would definitely recommend anyone else. Exposure therapy works.
That's great. I mean, ironically, the Chihuahua is probably the one that would fuck you up the most.
They're vicious, aren't they?
Vicious. Like my Caesar's he's just the worst. He's a terrible dog. This SIDS thing, maybe we should talk about that, because I know this is so anxiety provoking for women that are about to have babies, that have young babies, because it's really frightening, because your baby just dies, and like you don't know what causes it, and I like, part of the OCD is that I do just tons of research. And so when I decided to co-sleep, a lot of people, I mentioned it on my podcast, and I'm getting emails from people like, I'm a doctor and you shouldn't co-sleep and blah, blah, blah. And like, SIDS, fucking SIDS. And I'm like, all right. I would like to dig into the research on SIDS, because I know that it's a diagnosis of exclusion, which means that babies that are dying from myriad other causes are being classified as SIDS deaths. And I know that early SIDS research was also polluted by this nurse who was a serial killer, and she was murdering all these babies.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's
I
a
did not
really
know
crazy
that.
story. It was a famous SIDS researcher who was an MD, and he had like a disproportionate number of SIDS cases. And it turns out that one of the nurses he was just working with was just a serial killer, and she was smothering all these babies. And so I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
what data are people using? And so I got really interested in looking at the data from Japan, where everybody co-sleeps, and like they don't have an increased incidence of SIDS. And then I started looking at what they were calling SIDS in the United States and in Western countries. And 95% of all SIDS cases could be attributed to undiagnosed heart conditions or maternal or paternal drug use.
Yeah.
So they're accidentally smothering the baby.
Yeah.
So I just felt better about co-sleeping because it has to help if your baby has a problem. And like we're hormonally wired right now to wake up to the slightest noise.
Exactly.
Like I hear something in the night and I'm like, and so if my baby's right next to me, then if something goes wrong, like I'm going to be on it. If the baby's in the other room because I'm afraid of co-sleeping, like I just didn't believe this intuitively.
Yeah.
So when I looked into this research, I was like, yeah, as long as you don't have a million pillows on your bed, and you're not putting your baby face down on a memory foam mattress, like,
yeah, it's okay.
fine.
I'm also
You're not
co-sleeping.
drinking.
Yeah, I've been co-sleeping since literally day one.
Yeah.
And I was really nervous about it at first too, even though instinctually I also felt like the safest place for my baby to be is either on my chest or right next to me.
Yeah.
That baby's been like skin to skin with you inside you for 9 months. It's not natural to then just be like separated.
Yeah.
It really isn't. I think that would cause me more anxiety even. But even still, even though I felt comforted by having him close to me and him sleeping on me or directly next to me, the first few weeks, I would wake up in like a panic, like checking him, right? And there was one time I think I must have been still a little bit asleep. When I looked at him, it looked like his face was deformed. It was like I was half asleep, half awake. And my midwife said that's textbook postpartum, like depression, psychosis or something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's very, very common when you're still getting used to like letting yourself go into a deep sleep, right?
Yeah.
Because that was really hard for me in the beginning too. But I feel like from day one, he has been an excellent sleeper. He's been like sleeping like very peacefully for long periods of time at night. Like every now and again I'll get 4 hours, and when he goes down as well, like it's a solid 2 hour or 3 hours most regularly. And he's not stirring, he's not like waking up or tossing and turning, he just sleeps. So, and I think that's because he's more comfortable too. Like we didn't, I think we evolved to be that way, to have your baby close to you, and I think a lot of the something else my midwife told me that really helped. She was saying like all of these like rules for sleeping, like baby has to be sleeping on like basically like a cardboard flat surface with like no blankets, and like all of these like very strict things that they say you have to do. Those rules were designed for people who make bassinets, not for moms. right? They're legal. It's legal jargon to protect the manufacturers of people who make beds, not actual mothers who are trying to figure out a sleep schedule and a sleep method that works for them. And that made me feel a lot better about it as well.
Yeah, this is why I didn't finish What to Expect When You're Expecting. Because they don't advocate for co-sleeping, and it's like from day one, like put the baby in the room and it's sleep training. I'm like,
that's so cruel to me. Like
I think it's cool to judge
anyone, but it feels
I'm not gonna listen to my baby scream and cry in another room while like maybe if you're trying to sleep train like a toddler, but like this just feels abusive to me.
Yeah, it does. Especially like because like there's been a couple times when like baby's very upset for whatever reason, maybe gets a fright or he's startled or something, and he's like screaming, right? And in that space between him kicking off and me managing to soothe him, like he's like absolutely losing it, like making himself hoarse, like almost hyperventilating, like tears are streaming. I can't imagine just like letting him
The cry it out
exhaust
thing.
himself, basically, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
happens. The baby exhausts themselves trying to get your attention, and then they just learn that the person who's supposed to be looking out to them isn't going to come no matter what they do.
Exactly. I think it's so messed up. And then like there's this whole concept of self-soothing. It's like a kid your baby's age doesn't understand that mom is gone for 5 minutes or gone forever.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and just in those few minutes, I can't imagine what that's like to like be inconsolable, to be in distress, and then like nobody's coming to. It's making me emotional.
I know,
like,
it's
nobody's
so
coming
evil.
to bail you
I
out.
can barely self-soothe, and I'm in my 30s. Like, let alone poor newborn. Like, give me a break.
Yeah. So your anxiety was not super bad during pregnancy, was it?
It wasn't. No, because I was always like doing these like mental gymnastics to make myself excited. I was like, I'm going to be excited about this. This is the coolest thing ever. I'm so grateful to be able to do this. And prayer helped me a lot. Like I can't stress enough how much prayer helped me. And I felt like my daily prayers and like my connection with God was strengthened by that whole process because I had no choice but hand it over to him, you know? And praying for my baby's health, praying for my health, praying for our longevity and all of those things. I believe that God is, has the best interest for me and my family. So whatever it was that was going to happen, I was making peace with it on a daily basis. But like, that was something I had to do on a regular basis. Otherwise, I would have been far more anxious than I probably appeared to be.
Right. You also controlled the information that was coming into you. And I think that was probably, I don't want to, project or anything like that, but that was probably an important part of your pregnancy. Like you were only listening to positive birth stories and you were like, what can I do today to have a healthy pregnancy? So that helped you control your anxiety while you were pregnant?
Massively. And like, there were certain things that like, so like Ina May Gaskin she's kind of like the godmother of the midwifery movement. Now she is, just like as a caveat, she's pro-circumcision, which is like something that I was so like disappointed to find out about her, and it was really shocking to me because
that's like almost deal breaking territory.
I know, right? Because it's like an unforgivable thing, and I think that there's even I might be wrong about this, but I think that I heard that she actually performed circumcisions on her own sons.
No. Oh,
right?
That's like double bad.
Right. Ugh. So that's something that I just want to acknowledge and put out there, that's something about her that is horrific and I hate about her. But it's actually, it's very contradictory to like everything else about her. And I feel like she has a very, very healthy and positive and uplifting mindset about birth and birth education. And there were things that she would say that really helps me. Like there was one thing she was talking about a woman that she was a midwife for, and she helped her create a mantra. And the mantra that worked for her was, I'm going to get huge. In that, like, your body's going to stretch and become flexible. And so she would say that to herself over and over again to sort of like squash the fears of tearing, right? Which is like a big fear. That was a big fear of mine. That was like something I genuinely was afraid of. And so mantras were really good for me. That one wasn't specifically the best. I was using Bible verses a lot as mantras. One, I can't remember exactly what the Bible verse is. It was like Esther something. And the Bible verse is, perhaps this is the moment for which I have been created. And that was a really beautiful, like, it even makes me want to cry just thinking about it, because I feel like that's the truth, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why should I be afraid of something that, like, this is my purpose. This is why I'm here, is to do this.
Right.
Right. And that released me of a lot of anxiety as well. But like, just like you, like around like the 20-week scan, like I was super freaked out for days, right? Like leading up to that, and just like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And when we got the genetic testing done, right? Like I was scared then too, because I didn't know what the future was going to bring. Right. And I was at the mercy of whatever God had in store for me and my family.
Definitely.
So those things are, I think they're universally hard for women. And you just gotta white knuckle it through.
I mean, it helps a lot to break things down into tasks. And I've told this story so many times, I can't even remember if I've told it on Motherland or not. So have we talked about Touching the Void before?
I don't think so.
That documentary?
No.
Okay, then I probably talked about this on my podcast or whatever, but I talk about it all the time because this documentary changed my life. But these two mountain climbers were climbing K2 or something like that. And they were tethered to each other. One of them fell down into a crevasse and they had no way to communicate. And so the one that was still up on the mountain decided to cut the other guy so that he could get down because he's like, well, there's no way he's alive. What happened was they were both alive. The one that was in the crevasse had broken his femur and he had to crawl out of the crevasse and then like make his way down the mountain. They were about to summit when this happened with a broken femur.
God.
They ended up both surviving, but the one that came down with the broken femur, he was talking about how he did it like mentally, because for anybody else, this would be a death sentence. But what he did was he had like a watch and he's like, I'm going to go this distance in this amount of time. And like, he just broke the entire mountain down into these tiny little segments. And then he was able to, I mean, they both lived, which is just totally miraculous. So every time I have a task ahead of me, like a behemoth task, like getting through this pregnancy, I'm like, all right, I just need to get to the next indicated thing. So first it was like getting to 12 weeks was huge because you're out of the miscarriage, the high rate of miscarriage.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was the trisomy scans. And then it was the 20-week ultrasound. And then like when anxiety would get really bad, it would help a lot when they would use the Doppler and I'd hear the baby's heartbeat.
I always loved that too.
Yeah. So that was hugely reassuring. And then after the 20-week scan, if you have a clear 20-week scan, you have a 95% chance of having a normal baby.
Yeah.
So since then, it's been a lot easier.
Totally.
And so now it's like all I really have to do is just get the baby out.
Yeah.
And then it's a lifetime of worry. Yeah, definitely.
It's funny you mentioned the like incremental, like just having to get to this moment and then you're okay. Because I did that during labor. Actually, I did that with my contractions. I was really fortunate to have like very consistent regular contractions. So I had almost exactly 5 minutes in between each contraction. And the worst moment of every contraction was like almost, I swear to God, on the dot 30 seconds. Right. So I knew that if I could just get to the 30 seconds, I didn't even have to make it a minute. And I kept telling myself, you can do anything for 30 seconds. You can endure anything for 30 seconds. So I wasn't thinking about the fact that I had to do that 30 seconds 50 to 100 times. I was just very much focused and zeroed in.
One.
Exactly. And then I also was, because the pain of the contractions were so bad, and I feel like my labor hormones were very, very strong. The 5 minute segment in between the contractions, like was total bliss. Like my whole body felt relaxed. And I just felt like by comparison to how bad the contraction was, I was just like in heaven. It was so good that 5 minutes. And I kept thinking, oh, this 5 minutes it felt like it could last forever, and I would lose track of time. That 5 minutes would actually feel like a lot longer than it really was. And that gave me like the mental fortitude to keep going and to not panic, I feel like. So I think that's definitely a good trick. It has to be because it worked for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hope so. Have you ever had a migraine before?
No, I don't think so. Like I've had really bad headaches, but I feel like it's hard to know what a migraine is because like you can't feel what someone else is feeling. Right. You know what I mean? Like I've had bad headaches. My mom suffers with migraines and she gets like auras and like loses her peripheral vision and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I've never had that. So I don't think that I have.
I mean, they're really, really painful. And then you have waves of nausea and stuff, but like, you kind of have peaks and valleys with migraines. And it's just like, I've broken a lot of bones, but the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life have been migraine related. And so like you can feel when you're reaching like apex pain and then you throw up and then you kind of come back down and then like you can feel it mounting again. So I wonder if labor is going to be like that. Like, are you prepared for labor? I'm like, I've had a lot of migraines. Ooh.
Labor does sound a lot like that because before the contraction even starts, it does come on like a wave. And
Yeah.
because it gradually gets worse and worse and worse, and then you feel it descending and then petering off and fading away, it probably will be very similar to what you've endured with migraines, just in like a different part of your body, you know?
What kind of breathing techniques did you use?
I just breathed as deeply as I could in and as slowly as I could out, like just very deep. And actually, I was making so when my contractions were at their worst, when I was almost at transition, like almost to pushing phase, when I was breathing out, I was making like an ohm noise. I was like just like ohming it out.
Is this something
Very
that you
loud.
practiced, or
No,
did it just come
I
naturally?
just started doing it. I just started doing it. And it was like the louder that I was, it would like override the pain of it. I don't know. It's very hard to articulate how that helped, how the sound helped, how making the sound helped. But it did definitely. And so I would just in through the nose and then out through the mouth. And I would make a nice, big, long, like mooing noise, like a big cow in labor.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I mean, something that helps me think about labor, which I'm surprisingly just not that scared about, but it helps me to know that like my body was designed to do this. This isn't some weird foreign presence and I'm the first woman in the world that's ever going to give birth. It's like, yeah, like my uterus has expanded, it gets 500 times bigger when you're pregnant.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
500? That's insane.
500 times bigger. And so whatever weird stuff is happening to my body right now, I'm like, this is just how I'm supposed to operate. Can we talk for a second about that? This is a total aside. This is not what we were supposed to talk about. But my stomach right now, totally numb. The skin of my stomach, completely numb.
Really? Like all over from top to bottom.
I could get a tattoo on the top of my stomach, would not feel a thing. And I was Googling it, and apparently like your body just kind of stretches out so much that you just lose the sensation. Like,
wow, that's crazy. And so before it went numb, did it feel like the skin was stretching? Did it feel painful and then it went away? Or
no, it felt like nothing. And then I just realized that like when the feeling you have when your arm or your leg falls asleep, it's like that all over my stomach.
Crazy.
It's the weirdest thing ever.
Oh my gosh, that didn't happen to me. At least I didn't notice it if it did.
I'm just like, I haven't gained any weight in 2 to 3 weeks. But my stomach is dropping and it is rock hard.
Oh my gosh, you're getting there. You're almost there.
I know.
To sort of continue on what you were talking about, how your body is made to do this. Not only is that very true, something that I used to think about a lot, like on probably a daily basis that would help me is that like I have come from a very, very, very long line of women who have given birth successfully. And so have you. And so has every woman on earth. Right. Mm-hmm. So like just the sort of evolutionary aspect of that, you are, of course, there's going to be women who don't birth the same way as others, but you come from a line of women who did it successfully. There's no reason why you can't do it successfully too. And just thinking that and thinking about that and thinking about all the women who went through it before me, so that I would even have the opportunity to go through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost like honoring them by going through it, that rite of passage myself. It gave me a lot of strength. Definitely.
Yeah. And maternal mortality is so low. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this a little bit before, but like when you're pregnant, for some reason, one, people are going to want to touch your belly all the time, which I don't have that much of a problem with, but I can see how people can find it annoying. But the other thing people want to do is spew every horrible birth story that they've ever heard, their friends, cousins, colleagues, bus driver that died in labor or whatever the fuck. Like, I don't know why people want to do this to pregnant women, but it's just a barrage of everybody's messed up birth story. I'm like, no, I don't want to hear this, because you never hear stories. People don't want to tell you their uneventful birth story. Like,
right.
So
it's true. It's a weird thing that women do. I don't know if it has something to do with like, so for me, like, and this is me like psychoanalyzing the mob of women that do this, and I could be totally off base, but I think a lot of them feel a sense of shame maybe about not having been able to give birth in a easy fashion, right? Because
But it's not easy for anybody.
it isn't. No, it isn't easy for anyone. But like if you end up with like a C-section, or if you end up with, forceps, or all these things, I think it can feel like a failure for that woman, and it's no fault of her own, most likely, but inside herself, she probably feels ashamed. She probably feels like she failed. It probably is sort of like a chink on her feeling of her womanhood. And so to balance that out, she tells herself and tells everyone these kind of like gory, exaggerated explanations for why that had to happen, so that she doesn't have to feel the stigma of not being able to do it herself or without it, and I think that's something that's like a lack of birth education, why women feel that way, because women shouldn't have to feel that way.
And Brave the World did talk about this, but she's like, I wish somebody would have better prepared me for the amount of pain I'm going to be in.
Because if you're in the crunchy circle, if you're running crunchy circles, there are women who will be like, oh, you can give birth without pain.
Nope.
Like they literally say that. They literally sell that idea to women. There's a woman, I think she's actually from the UK, and she has a podcast called Birth Without Fear or something like that. Fearless Birthing or something like that. And she literally says that she doesn't feel pain when she gives birth. And if you just, pay for the subscription of her podcast and her book and all this kind of stuff, you too can give birth without pain. It's charlatanism. Like it's really.
Have you heard about these euphoric births? I mean, I've heard about them from
births.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard about them from people that I trust. But I'm also fairly skeptical that this is even like a legitimate phenomenon. I'm like, a baby is ripping open your vaginal canal. I don't think you're just gonna have like 50 orgasms.
I don't think so either. Now, I mean, like, I won't rule out the possibility that a very, very, very small number of women who have previously had a bunch of babies already may be able to feel a sense of pleasure. Possibly.
I'm not buying it.
The thing is, just as a like playing devil's advocate towards that fact, when I went through transition and my contractions stopped hurting, when my uterus was doing the fetal ejection response and was pushing my baby down and out, it did actually feel kind of good in comparison to how bad it felt before. But that's not the same as pleasure, right? It isn't. It's not the same as like, oh yeah, this feels great. It's like, this is horrifying and I feel like my butt's going to explode.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't criticize women for like making us too scared and then also making it sound like it's too easy. Yeah, maybe Brave the World is right. Like, just approach it with the appropriate amount of gore.
Because it's not going to be something that's a walk in the park. Like, I don't care how easy your birth is, it's going to be rough. And you have to balance that out with positive thinking so that you're not terrified of the fact that it's going to be a bit rough, right?
Yeah. So how was your husband as a birth partner in helping alleviate anxiety? So our husbands are similar in their high level of autism and low level of emotional ability. So I'm a little worried that my husband's going to be like, stop being such a pussy. Like, you're going to kill the baby if you don't get it out. I'm like,
he won't, but he is very like my husband, and he may just not really know what to do. And I feel like, so like my husband was always super, super supportive and like very encouraging and very proud of me for wanting a home birth. And what he never, ever made me feel like I was being reckless or doing something stupid. He really believed in me. But he, like your husband probably will, needed instruction a little bit, right? And so I told him before I went into labor, these are 3 things that I want you to say to me when I'm in labor. I want you to tell me you love me. I want you to say you're doing it. And I want you to tell me that I'm so strong. You can tell me those 3 things over and over and over, then we'll be good. And during the actual labor itself, I didn't really feel like I needed him that much. Like I was so in the zone. I was like so in my own headspace. And like my style of giving birth, at least with this pregnancy, is kind of like a cat. Like I just want to crawl into a dark place alone by myself and give birth to my baby in private. Like that's how I feel about it. If he had been like, coddling me and like fussing over me, it wouldn't have helped. So he actually slept through a part of my labor. He was tired and needed a nap. So I was just like, yeah, go for it. Like, fine. But during the pushing part, he basically just kept his hand on my shoulder and like was rubbing my shoulder and rubbing my hair and that kind of thing. Like touch really helped. And he was saying those 3 things. And that was it. And that was
an
enough.
Excellent idea.
That was enough, and I didn't want to put too much onto him being like, like you need to like memorize all of these things and like making it a complicated thing. Cause I feel like that would have stressed me out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think those 3 things, tell your husband to memorize those 3 things. And whenever he feels like he needs to help and doesn't know what to do, pick one of them 3 things. It'll make you feel like $1 million.
That's such a good idea because that'll take out the guesswork for him. And then I won't be worried about him going all military on me, which I'm very concerned about. Yeah. And then like men like them, they want to solve problems.
Yeah.
But when you just need emotional support, it's you can't have like a problem solving approach to just giving sustained emotional support.
Yes, exactly.
Like I just need you to be there for me, but they're like, how do I fix X, Y, and Z? How do I fix the pain? How do I, it's like, you're not going to be able to do that.
Yes.
I just need
really
you to
hard
just be
for
there.
them.
Yeah.
It's
and
really hard for them to see, their wives in that kind of pain going through that and for them to not be able to do anything.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, trying to keep it simple works for guys like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Him like expressing any fear or worry or concern would have thrown me off too.
That's true.
Like I feel like if he had been if I had sensed or smelt fear on him, even in a little bit, I would have then broken. My confidence would have been shaken. So maybe tell your husband if he is feeling worried, like to talk to a nurse about it, to talk to a doctor about it. Exactly, because that's just going to be, a burden on you. You're focusing on your own issues and your own fears and your own what you're feeling at the moment. You can't help him with how he's afraid.
I mean, that is producing a lot of anxiety for me right now. And also he has like a really low threshold for gross bodily stuff.
Okay, fair enough.
Like, how it gets after 20 weeks of pregnancy, like there is no controlling your farts. Like it doesn't matter if I'm in the line at the grocery store, like there's nothing I can do about it. And like, I just like fart publicly now. And I'm like, I don't even care, but like the look on his face when it happens is he's like visibly horrified. I'm like, I am 9 months pregnant right now. And like, I'm scared that we're going to be in there and there's going to be a pile of bloody towels and like, and that he's just going to be like so visibly grossed out. So I've told him like, if you are really disgusted by what's happening, like I better not see that on your face.
Yes. Yeah.
There's going to be no room in my vision for insecurity about my bodily function when I'm trying to safely push a baby out,
Tell him to just stay up by your head area.
Yeah.
If you just stay on that region of your body and it'll be fine. Like my husband is actually the opposite of that. Like I'm the one who gets more grossed out by bodily functions than he does actually. And he actually found the placenta coming out to be way more cool than the baby coming out.
So he had like a scientific fascination with your placenta.
Yeah. He was just like, wow, that was so cool. But yeah, I mean, if that's the way that your husband is, like, don't try and like, obviously you won't, but I'm speaking generally to anyone who might be watching. If that's the way your husband is, like, just let him be that way.
Yeah.
Like trying to like shame him about feeling disgusted about bodily functions is not going to make him more comfortable with the bodily functions, right? He just is. That's the way. It's a personality thing.
So true. I've been trying to acclimate him for this whole 9 months, and it has not helped.
No, it's very much, I think, a hardwired thing.
Yeah,
in us, either we are that way or we aren't. And if someone just isn't into it and just doesn't, it makes them feel uncomfortable, then just, let that be their thing and, take it on the chin. It's not actually personal, right?
That's true. Yeah.
It's not actually personal.
And in relationships though, I kind of feel like it is because, we're expected to keep all this mystery alive.
Yeah. How's that going to happen?
But it just becomes impossible at a certain point during pregnancy because, you know, like I'm so late in pregnancy. There is nothing I could do or wear at this point that's going to make me feel like a sexy woman.
I know.
Nothing. Like if I put on lingerie right now, it would just make everybody laugh.
Honestly, I feel like that, and I'm 10 weeks postpartum, so.
So at some point, you know, it's not going to be like, you know, right when we got married, when I was in the best shape of my life. And like, I remember at my wedding feeling like, oh, I weigh 125 pounds. I wish I would have like lost 5 more pounds before the wedding. I'm looking back on those pictures and I'm like, I was so skinny. Like, look at my skinny little arms. And I'm just like, I had no perspective then. I had no idea.
Exactly how I feel. I look at my pictures from my wedding day and I like hate myself because I thought I needed to lose 5 pounds. And I would like chew my own arm off just to get that body back right now. Like it's so rough. But the other thing that would be, you know, maybe worth considering with regard to like husbands in the first time pregnancy, right? Like supposing that we are blessed to have other pregnancies, he'll be like through exposure, he will be less freaked out by this stuff. Right. So maybe down the line, you know, maybe he'll catch your baby someday on your 4th baby when you're having a home birth.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even sure if like I need him to get there.
Yeah.
I just need him to like not grimace at the involuntary stuff. I'm not super happy this is happening to my body either. You know?
Well, you're going to make some pretty animalistic noises during your labor. So he's gonna see a whole new side to you. And honestly, you know, he's gonna be like probably brought to his knees a little bit with how strong you are and what you have endured to bring your baby into the world for him and for you. Like I think it's a very humbling experience for men to see what their wives are capable of.
Yeah. I hope so. I mean, I feel like I should be more scared about it. I have all this anxiety about like today I got like Clorox wipes on my hands and like I'm freaking out like washing my hands, but I'm not worried about labor, which could happen at any moment because I'm basically term and I'm just not worried about it.
I think that's good. Like I said that to my midwife too. When I was nearing the end, I was like, I feel like I should be more worried. Like, am I being naive? Do I not know what I'm getting myself into right now?
I guess it doesn't really matter though.
Well, she said, that's how you should feel. You shouldn't feel afraid. Why would you feel afraid to do something that you were literally designed to do?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the natural response. Like I think it's all of this medicalization and like the SID stuff and like all these stats about infant mortality and all of the interventions that could happen. Like all those things are very modern, right? Like, and that's what puts the fear in us. Women, you know, a couple hundred years ago, like they would have just been scared that their baby wasn't going to make it. It wasn't like all of these little intricate details that would cause more neuroticism in us than it ever would have them.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's totally true. I guess I am really afraid of having to have a C-section. That's what I'm most afraid of.
It seems like a scary thing to endure, but you know, like when I was thinking about the possibility of having a C-section, because I was really afraid of that too, I was trying to think of, well, what would be good about having a C-section, right? And now there probably isn't much, but you know, and the healing from what I've heard from women, like when Brave the World was telling me about like the differences between them both, the experience wasn't much different. They both sucked, but the recovery was harder for the C-section, right? But there was something kind of reassuring to me about thinking, well, at least it didn't have to come out of my vagina. Like there's something almost reassuring about that option, right? Like that will be intact. That won't change. And there's supposed to be like less bleeding, I think, with C-sections. You're not really supposed to bleed at all, I don't think, because they take everything out. So I don't know. I would try not to even think about it. You know, like don't even entertain the thought.
There's just nothing I can do about it. I mean, I don't know. And outside of that, I'm just like, I'm doing squats and I'm still walking a mile a day, but that's like all I'm doing.
It's more than I was doing at your stage.
No, but you had been preparing the whole time and you were doing the Epinose system. Like I haven't done any perineal stretching at all.
That's okay. You don't need to do that. That was more of like a psychological thing.
Yeah,
that
but
I
you would know
wanted to do.
tearing.
You might not either. Like you might not either. Like when I did the Epinose thing with my midwife and stuff, like it went really well, and I was like, oh, like that wasn't so bad. Maybe that's a good sign that I won't have any tearing. And my midwife was like, no, that's not actually what it is. That's not actually what that means. When this Epino thing is literally nothing like actually pushing out a baby. It just tries to give you a bit of like body awareness of like what it will feel like when something sort of comes out. And the stretching feeling, there's kind of like a burning ring of fire feeling with the Epino. I didn't even feel that with birth. I didn't feel that at all with birth. And like, my midwife was like, you don't need to do the Epino to not tear either. Because I was like walking around like, oh, I did the Epino thing and it was no problem for me, so I'm not going to tear. And she was like, no, like it actually doesn't mean anything. It's just like a really expensive thing that makes you feel good about yourself.
But it worked. I mean, but maybe giving you like the mental confidence is what helped you deliver in a way that you were able to avoid tearing. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that's evidence-based. It's just
Hearth and Helm is in the chat, and she says tearing is not nearly as bad as you think. That's reassuring, because I think there's probably like just like the idea of tearing. It seems so much worse than it probably actually is. I mean, they have like lots of special sutures that they dissolve on their own, and it's probably uncomfortable at first, but you're going to be uncomfortable anyway.
12.5-pound baby boy.
What? I did not know that.
Oh my god.
Heals much faster than an episiotomy. Exactly. Right. So that's true. That's also very true.
That's in my birth plan. Like
no quarter-inch tear. Yeah, episiotomies are rough because the way that you heal from them, like you'll end up with a big nasty scar, and then the next time you give birth, there's the possibility that you could tear along that same scar, right? Whereas if your natural muscle fibers tear as the baby comes out, that heals back up the way that it's supposed to, and you're way less likely to tear the second time round, from what I've heard.
Oh, geez.
So,
is there anything else you wanted to say about anxiety? I see we've got a few questions in the live chat.
Why don't we check the live chat and see what people are saying? I think we covered most of the things I wanted to talk about.
All right, from Scarlet Bear, serious question. I've been looking into the rise in child cancer, and all sources I found online say it's safe to breastfeed while on hormonal birth control. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, I actually made a video about this a few years ago, but establishing causation in a population like that is virtually impossible to do. Even if there's a suspected link between childhood cancer and hormonal birth control, from a data standpoint, it's virtually impossible to like truly establish causation.
Yeah.
That being said, I wouldn't do it, but I will never go on hormonal birth control again. I've been on the NuvaRing before, and I think that was a mistake. It made my migraine disorder really bad. I had a lot of side effects from it. And we talked about this in Brave the World, but if you use withdrawal and natural family planning, you are approaching 100% efficacy.
Yeah.
There's only a 4% failure rate for withdrawal alone without natural family planning on an annual basis if done correctly. And all the studies that show typical use, which is about a 20% failure rate, were done with teenagers that couldn't control their ejaculate. So I don't know why any woman wouldn't choose to do that. It's so ridiculous. It's like, don't use teenagers for your withdrawal study, you morons. If you're like,
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Have you been on hormonal birth control before?
For a very short amount of time.
Me too.
And it made me feel like I was so depressed and like so numb that I just like, I did it for like I took it for maybe about 8 months to a year.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it really messed me up. Oh, is baby getting upset? For me, I wouldn't be so much worried about cancer as I would be worried about all that extra estrogen in my system and how that affects my breast milk. That would be my personal issue with
definitely.
it. I'm just gonna go check on baby real quick.
Okay,
Maybe
girl,
we'll wrap, or do we have? Maybe he'll stop. Do we only have a few more questions, and then maybe we'll wrap it up?
yeah, or you can do it. I actually don't know that we have any other questions. Let's see.
Okay, perfect.
Wonder if ultra testosterone. Why are you getting your girlfriend pregnant? You should be married.
Ultra testosterone.
I know. He's like, where are all these women? Where are all their babies? It's like, well, that's literally what we're talking about. My girlfriend has 3 white babies. Why is she your girlfriend then? I know there was one more question. Somebody asked what the documentary I was talking about was. It's Touching the Void.
That sounds really good. I'm going to look that up. My husband would love to watch that.
There was one more, but I can't seem to find it. Can you find it?
Someone in the chat says, my C-section wasn't that bad. I recovered in 6 weeks like most births. But I've been told I'm 1 in 10.
Oh, yeah.
And she says, no, you actually do bleed. So maybe that's my mistake. But yeah, even like with C-section, like I think there's a lot of fear put in our heads, as this is the worst case scenario, anything but this. But if you speak to women who have C-sections, they're happy they have a healthy baby, that their baby's alive. And like, that's all that matters at the end of the day, like if you can avoid it, sure. If you can't, you still have a baby. That's the best thing ever. So
healthy baby is really the goal. Advice for husbands: being supportive around 12 weeks with my wife. Thanks for the awesome live streams. I mean, I wish my husband like understood more that I'm like the sacrifice of my body. I mean, I'm pretty vain. I've always been like a pretty vain person, but the physical changes have been like really hard on me emotionally because I'm like, I used to be so hot and now I've got these big nipples and like stretch marks.
You will get your body back and I will get my body back. We just have to be patient, which is not easy, but it will happen. It's going to happen.
I hope so. I mean, foot rubs have been a lot of help. Yeah.
Someone says, Robyn, can you recommend a good gift for a new mom? One that she will actually need and use? Oh gosh, baby's crying.
That's okay. That can be the last one.
A good gift for a mom that she will actually use. Just bring her food. Just literally bring her food because she doesn't need anything really. She's just recovering from giving birth and she's trying to take care of her baby. Like my baby's screaming over there right now. But like, if you can bring food or you can come over and do a couple loads of laundry, that's better than anything you can purchase, in my opinion. Anyways.
Or just listen to our problems. That will help too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm gonna have to call
Thank you so much, everybody in the live chat that donated and asked questions. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back. Hopefully we'll get a few more in before I give birth, but she might be here tomorrow. I have no idea because I'm having a Braxton Hicks contraction right now. Anyway, so I am Blonde in the Belly of the Beast. This is Robyn Riley of Critical Condition. This is our channel together, Motherland, where hopefully we'll have some more streamlined and consistent content soon. So thanks for watching and we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.